Hi, I'm John Belushi.
Dan Aykroyd here.
I'm Ray Charles.
I'm Aretha Franklin.
I'm Murph, and these are the Magic Tones. Steve the Colonel Cropper, Donald Duck Dunn, Willie Two Big Hall, and Tom Bones Malone.
You're listening to the Sounds of Christmas
podcast.
Hi, I'm Ken Kessler, and welcome to the Sounds of Christmas podcast. If you're new to this podcast, I want to start by saying thanks for joining us. If you're not new, welcome back. Either way, I'm glad you're here. Now, to avoid any confusion, I want to start off by saying there won't be any music played here. This is a place for conversation. I'll talk about Christmas music and some related topics, sometimes by myself and sometimes with guests. If you're looking for music, just go to soundsofchristmas.com and click on the tree or the player on the front page or on the Listen Now page. We play the best variety of Christmas music all year long. Well, except in October, when we play the best variety of Halloween music. We're in the off-season now, even though the Sounds of Christmas station is still on and this podcast is still moving along. But it's March, and I get that a lot of people aren't real focused on Christmas or Christmas music at the moment. I was watching one of my favorite non-Christmas movies the other night, The Blues Brothers, and I kind of went down this rabbit hole. First, I thought it was a shame that the Blues Brothers never put out a Christmas album. Now, for those who don't know, the Blues Brothers was a real band. John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd put together a real powerhouse of real A-list musicians. And they put out a bunch of albums and did quite a few tours. And if John had lived, there probably would have been more of that. And since there's a lot of great blues and R&B Christmas music out there, it's not so far-fetched to think that they might have put out a Christmas album or at least done some Christmas shows. Then I thought that the Blues Brothers movie could be turned pretty easily into a Christmas movie simply by replacing the music. The overall plot, the band getting back together to play a gig that would raise money to save an orphanage, could certainly take place in December rather than the spring or summer whenever the movie is supposedly taking place. But I wondered how hard it would be to replace the songs from the movie with Christmas songs. Now, to do something this crazy, I figure I'd need some help. So I invited Kevin from the 'Tis the Soundtrack podcast to join me in this endeavor. Hi, Kevin. Thanks for playing along with this.
Hey, Ken. Thanks for having me.
Now, before we get into this, for anybody who doesn't know or doesn't remember, can you tell us a little bit about 'Tis the Soundtrack and what it's about?
Yeah. So we're just about to turn 1 year old now. And it's a podcast focusing on Christmas music, but more specifically, Christmas music that's used in movies and advertising. There's a lot of great things to find there, and so that's where we spend most of our time. And being a Disneyland fanatic, we also talk about the holiday loops and things that play at the theme parks too, and kind of figure out a way to wedge that in there.
So with all the focus on movie music, you can see why I asked Kevin to join me on this. I know lots of people have done the recasting thing with movies, where they take a movie and they recast the main actors and some of the minor ones as if it were some kind of a reboot. It's been sort of a standard thing for morning radio shows for years. I remember when I was on one and we did one about Gilligan's Island. In fact, I think there was an LA show that did that, and this was back in the 90s, but it sort of went viral for something that could go viral in the 90s. Where lots of people were talking about it, and they had picked Adam Sandler as Gilligan and Chris Farley as the skipper and Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Mary Ann. That's the only ones that I remember, but I feel like one of those people had to come forward and say that it was not real, which I thought
that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's pretty good and great for that morning show. But I don't ever remember hearing anybody changing a movie into a Christmas movie by replacing the music. And
no, I think you're pioneering here. This is new ground.
Well, there could be a reason. There could be a really good reason that nobody's ever done this. But I thought we'd give it a shot. Now, I did check to see if there were any Christmas songs that had been performed by the Blues Brothers, and I couldn't find anything from the original Blues Brothers. There is a special Christmas version of the Blues Brothers show at Universal Studios, or at least there used to be. Yep. And there have been some tribute acts that have done Christmas shows as the Blues Brothers, but nothing from the original group, nothing I could find. Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi did perform Winter Wonderland along with the other not ready for primetime players in December of 1975 during the first season of Saturday Night Live. And while they were both in the Steven Spielberg movie 1941, which does take place in December, kind of just before Christmas, neither of them perform any Christmas songs. In fact, I don't think there's any Christmas music in that movie, but it's not really a Christmas kind of movie, even though that's happening kind of also.
While we're doing our repairs here, I'm going to hang this wreath on my front door. This symbol of Christmas, this symbol of peace. I just want to remind us all that we're not going to let a bunch of treacherous enemy killjoys ruin our Christmas.
And I don't know if this is real or if it's just a rumor, and Kevin, you might actually know, but supposedly Dan Aykroyd did perform a Christmas song, I think it was Frosty the Snowman, for the movie Christmas with the Cranks, and it was either cut or it was just an idea that they were going to do, and it was never filmed. Had you ever heard that?
I haven't.
Okay.
We're here for Frosty.
I haven't been able to find any clips or anything of that, so I'm kind of feeling like it didn't really happen.
Didn't get past the idea stage.
Yeah, but I would love to have had that. So there aren't any rules here. We're going to try and stick to the spirit of the original movie, mostly replacing songs with blues or R&B Christmas songs, mostly, but also taking liberties here and there, just as the Blues Brothers did in that movie. If I did the math right, there are 24 songs in this movie. Some are big productions and some are relegated to the background. And let's see if we can get through them all. And I'll sort of set up the scene for each one a little bit. So assuming you've seen this movie before, you'll be able to follow along. Does that all make sense?
That makes sense to me. And like I shared before we started, I'm excited for this. So I won't take too many minutes, but being a Eugene, Oregon native, Blues Brothers is a big deal around here. So before Blues Brothers, the University of Oregon, which in a previous life I spent 7-ish years there as a technology director, was the filming location for Animal House.
Right.
So and everyone knows that in that story. So while Belushi was living in town here filming that movie, he was getting bored, and one of the local crew members said, "Hey, go down to the Eugene Hotel on Mondays. They do a blues show there." And he and Aykroyd had already been on SNL for a couple of years, and Aykroyd had already been kind of acclimating him to blues music. But he went down and saw Curtis Salgado and Robert Cray perform, and immediately struck up a friendship with Salgado, had him come over to his house and bring over records for him to listen to. And then even joined Salgado's band, the Nighthawks, on stage a few times while he was still in town filming Animal House. So, then the next year, they debut Blues Brothers in April of '78 on SNL. So the first album from the Blues Brothers, Briefcase Full of Blues, has a dedication to Curtis Salgado. And then Cab Calloway's character in the movie is named Curtis in tribute to him. And so every couple of years, that story pops up here locally, and they run it in the newspaper. They talk to Curtis Salgado because he's still a local here, and they get new little bits of information. So over the last, 40 plus years now, every time they do another interview or one of the local travel authority talks to him to talk about Animal House and the Blues Brothers, little bits of information keep leaking out. So it's a cool local thing we have here.
That is cool. That's very cool. And a great way to sort of set the stage for this.
Yeah.
So, the first song in the movie is Somebody Loan Me a Dime by Fenton Robinson. And this is played in the beginning when the guards are taking Jake from his cell to be released.
Boots, black. Belt, black. One black suit jacket. One pair black suit pants. One hat, black. One pair of sunglasses. $23.07. Sign here.
I never noticed it before. But in preparing for this, I'm like, okay. So that's playing. It's playing in the background. If I hadn't told you that, you probably wouldn't know. What would you replace that with?
So I'm starting things off with the very first song by Cheating, and I have two. So we're no rules, but we're not sticking to them. So I picked the first one I picked was Leroy Carr's "Christmas in Jail." Ain't that a pain? I think just tongue in cheek, it plays with the scene well of him getting his release. The other one that I think really fits, but it's not quite a Christmas song, is T-Bone Walker's "Cold Cold Feeling." Not a Christmas song, no reference to Christmas, but I think thematically really fits. And because they do the panning shots of Chicago during that scene, I think I think it plays well in that scene.
The one I picked, and I have also cheated many times, as you'll see, and have two, but I only had one for this one. Marvin Gaye, "I Want to Come Home for Christmas."
Oh, that's a good pick too.
I thought that that really evokes that he's getting out and everything. The downside of it is that you hardly notice that song playing. So I hate to waste Marvin Gaye on that, but I feel like that's really appropriate for that scene. All right, the next song is "She Caught the Katy," which is performed by the Blues Brothers. And this is when Elwood picks up his brother in a 1974 Dodge Monaco Mount Prospect police car.
This was a bargain. I picked it up at the Mount Prospect City Police Auction last spring. It's an old Mount Prospect police car. They were practically giving them away.
Well, thank you, Al. The day I get out of prison, my own brother picks me up in a police car.
What do you swap in for "She Caught the Katy"?
So I picked Joe Bonamassa's "Bring Back My Cadillac." Like you just set up, they're in a Dodge Monaco. But I believe it's during that scene they have the exchange back and forth about what happened to the Cadillac, and he sold it for a microphone, and he was good with that because that was a reasonable thing to trade the car for. I think also "Bring Back My Cadillac" has some big drum hits at the beginning of it, and I think if you did a slight reworking of that song, so you pulled in like the rhythm first, you could probably time it out really well so the drum hits hit in that scene where it does like the headshots of them and like the Blues Brothers logo and kind of does like the quick snaps back and forth. So that was my pick.
I picked "Santa's Got a Coupe de Ville" by the Four Imperials. And then I thought, and this really doesn't fit, but I thought "Little Saint Nick" by the Beach Boys. Especially because I just thought it would be so funny hearing that as they do that jump over the bridge. It's got some pickup.
It does, and it's car culture related, if not directly in the lyrics. So I like that.
Okay, the next one is "Shake Your Money Maker," Elmore James. This was played when Jake and Elwood are visiting Curtis at the St. Helen of the Blessed Shroud orphanage.
Yes. So for me on this one, I tried to find another Elmore James song that I thought would work because there's the exchange between the characters about growing up in the orphanage and singing Elmore James tunes.
Curtis, you and the Penguin are the only family we got. You're the only one that was ever good to us. Singing Elmore James tunes and blowing the harp for us down here.
Right.
And so I really wanted something that would slot in there seamlessly. And couldn't find anything that really worked for it. So I went with Sonny Boy Williamson's "Santa Claus." For folks that don't know the song, he's talking about how his girlfriend went out and bought all their Christmas presents and left his back home. And he's going through her dressers looking for his gifts and upsets the landlady, and she calls the cops and they're taking him away. And I think it just it works similarly to the Elmore James tune in that scene. So that was my pick.
My initial pick for this was "Santa" by Lightnin' Hopkins. Because I was trying to think of somebody that sort of fit with Elmore James.
Yeah.
But then I'm thinking about this scene where Curtis is explaining that they need all this money. And I thought, you know what? Pearl Bailey's 5-pound box of money would be.
Oh.
That would be great. That's what she wants for Christmas, and that's what they want. A 5-pound box of money.
Now that's perfect.
So the next one, and I really tried with some of these, at least some of the performances by some of these legendary singers, to use something, to swap in something by that same singer. But like you were talking about with Elmore James, sometimes that's really hard. James Brown, "The Old Landmark." played during when they slide on down to the Triple Rock.
Yep.
Or the church scene.
Do you see the light? The band! Do you see the light? What light? Have you seen the light? Yeah!
What did you put in for that?
Actually had that in my note that I did the same thing. So I was looking for a James Brown song, and does have a lot of great Christmas songs, but none of them really fit the gospel choir kind of that scene very well. So I went with Earth, Wind, and Fire's version of Joy to the World. It's that big up-tempo version. It's got all the background vocals that I think would lend themselves to the gospel choir scene.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I use James Brown's Soulful Christmas. It doesn't have the same sort of "Have you seen the light?" kind of thing, but I wanted to use James Brown, and I think it would work. I also thought of Huey Piano Smith's White Christmas Blues, but again, it's nice and it has a great beat and everything, but it's not jumping out of your seat gospel.
Yeah, I think, and I know we weren't changing the movie, but I think there's an opportunity here to when Belushi kind of goes into his spiritual form, there's got to be a way to work a Christmas Carol version of that into there. I think that would just lend itself too perfectly to that scene.
Yeah. I really wanted to find. I was like, James Brown's got to have some kind of gospel-y Christmas song I could put in there, but I couldn't find. By the way, for anybody who's listening, if you think of something that seems obvious, and why didn't those guys think of this? Email me, text the show, and let me know, and we'll do a part 2, and we'll talk about it. The next scene, Elwood is driving Jake back to his apartment, and they go through a yellow light. And
What? What did I do?
You failed to stop in a red signal.
The light was yellow, sir.
the police are going to pull him over, and they've got a Sam and Dave 8-track in the player, and they're playing Soothe Me. Would you swap in for that?
So this is the next time I cheated, and so I didn't go with a traditional Christmas song here. I went with William Bell, Every Day Will Be Like a Holiday. So again, doesn't mention Christmas specifically, but I'll say that Walgreens did use this in 2023 for their Christmas commercial. It's if you've seen it, it's a daughter who surprises her parents by coming home Christmas Eve. And while they're all happy and hugging, the mom's kind of like on the side trying to figure out how to get, candy and, presents. And so she's using the Walmart app for, 1 hour delivery. And so I figured that was close enough. It was featured in a Christmas commercial. We'll count it.
Yeah. I used Merry Christmas Baby from Otis Redding.
Oh, another great song.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that's nice. And it's kind of background, but I like that. They keep going with the same 8-track, and it's Sam and Dave, Hold On, I'm Coming, as Elwood hits the gas and leads the police on a chase to the Dixie Mall.
You got us into this parking lot, pal. Now you get us out. You want out of this parking lot? Okay.
Yeah.
What'd you swap in for Hold On, I'm Coming?
So like you said, they're on the same 8-track, and so there's kind of a juxtaposition between Soothe Me and Hold On, I'm Coming, because Soothe Me is a much slower, melodic song, and then, the action scene happens and the track kicks over, and here comes Hold On, I'm Coming. So, and also one of my favorite scenes of the movie is them going through just destroying that mall, and, commenting on the shops, and, it's an upscale mall. So I wanted to find a version of Run, Rudolph, Run for here because I thought that played perfectly with the chase scene. So I looked for every blues version I could find, and the one I went with was I was going to say it's more modern, but I think it came out in the late 90s, which at this point are closer to the movie coming out in the 80s than they are to now in 2025. So more modern is probably subjective, right?
Yeah.
But it's by the group Roomful of Blues.
Nice.
And it's their version of Run, Rudolph, Run. And I think it fits really well there.
I had thought, well, it's supposed to be the same 8-track, so obviously Otis Redding's White Christmas, but I didn't really like the way that that felt as they're going on the chase. So I picked two. I picked Riff Ruffin, Christmas Baby, or Gary Walker, Santa's Got a Brand New Bag.
Oh, that would be a good one also.
Yeah. It's tricky finding something that sort of fits and is the right tempo. And,
Right.
So, the people who do make the music choices for movies, this is nothing and it's not comparable to that, but this was hard. So hats off to you guys.
Yeah. I don't know how you approach this, but when I started, I had your notes with the scenes, and before I even looked at what song was in them, I just started making a list down at the bottom of blues, R&B songs that I really like, that I would like to fit in here if possible. And then as I started going through it, I'm like, well, it's a great song, but it doesn't really fit any of these scenes. Either the lyrics are so off from what the scene's doing, or like you said, you've got to be somewhat mindful of the tempo, otherwise it just kind of maligns what you're seeing. And so
Yeah.
I ended up with a handful that I really hoped would fit in here somewhere that just kind of got left on the floor.
Yeah, this was tricky to do. Next song is I Can't Turn You Loose, originally an Otis Redding song. Speaking of Otis Redding, Blues Brothers version played this was played a couple of times during the chase scene in the mall. And also this is the intro for their concert later near the end of the movie at the Palace Hotel Ballroom.
Pants and burgers. Yeah. Lots of space in this mall.
What did you put in for I Can't Turn You Loose?
So same thing. I was looking for something that was, a faster tempo for the scene that would match it, that would be similar to I Can't Turn You Loose. So I went with Lloyd Glenn, which is one of my favorite blues artists, his version of Sleigh Ride. And for folks that don't know, Lloyd Glenn he's considered one of the originators of, I think they just call it West Coast blues. So there was a big group of Texas blues musicians in the early 40s that moved out to California and kind of established this version of blues that's more heavy on the jazz influence. And it usually, not always, but usually the piano is front and center. And it definitely is in his version of Sleigh Ride, which I think works well in that scene.
Well, I had two for this one. Chuck Berry, Run Rudolph Run.
Yep.
Or Bob Seger, Sock It To Me Santa. Both of those really cook, and that would be fun background as they're noticing that the new Oldsmobiles are in early this year.
Yep.
The Peter Gunn theme is next. This was performed by the Blues Brothers in the movie, and it is played several times when they exit the mall, in the extended version when Elwood is quitting his job, and also as they're heading to the Armada room to connect with Murph and the Magic Tones.
This here's my brother Jake. Just got out of the joint. He's gonna be staying with me for a few weeks.
Okay.
What did you pop in for the Peter Gunn theme?
Yeah, so this for me was maybe the hardest or one of the hardest ones. So the Peter Gunn theme is just so iconic, and like you said, it gets used 3 different times in the movie. So I wanted something that again is a very iconic blues R&B Christmas song. So I went with Clarence Carter's version of Backdoor Santa. My only qualm with it is that, the Peter Gunn theme is instrumental, but I feel like even with the lyrics, it works in all the various scenes that it would go. So that was my pick.
It's funny that you say that because this was the first song that I thought of for this whole idea when I was like, I wonder if you could do this. I was like, well, what songs would I use? And then I thought, well, when they're leaving the mall and going back to Elwood's apartment, Vince Guaraldi Trio, Linus and Lucy.
Oh, that would be good.
And then I thought, you know what? That would be perfect. It is so recognizable and it's kind of cool and it's not really blues, but there are no rules. So
there you go.
Yeah. Okay, they get to Elwood's apartment, and he puts on a record, Louis Jordan, Let the Good Times Roll.
Well, it ain't much, but it's home.
How often does a train go by?
So often you won't even notice it.
What'd you put in for that?
Yeah, so for this one, I wanted something. This is my opinion. I think in that scene, it was tongue in cheek that they're listening to "Let the Good Times Roll" because they're in this terrible apartment. You know, it's his first night out of jail. The Chicago trade. You know, the trade's going right outside the window, and they're playing "Let the Good Times Roll."
Yeah.
So I picked B.B. King's version of "I'll Be Home for Christmas" because again, if this is taking place so my headcanon for this is Jake got out of prison a week before Christmas. The concert culminates on Christmas night. Christmas Eve would work better, but since they have to go to the assessor the next day, they're not going to be open on Christmas. So in my head, the concert's happening Christmas night. So when they drive through the night, they arrive at the assessor's office to pay the debt, on the 26th. And so I thought I'll Be Home for Christmas is great because when you picture going home for Christmas, you don't picture a 200 square foot apartment right next to a train line. And so I thought it kept that same humor to it.
I picked Jimmy Rogers, It's Christmas Once Again. I feel like it kind of fits, and it's one of those songs that's happy and sad at the same time. And I thought, okay, that's what this is. He's out of jail. They're together again. They're in this really tiny little hole-in-the-wall apartment with the train going by so often you won't even notice. Elwood's cooking toast with a hanger on a hot plate, but it's Christmas again. So I just thought, you know what? This works. Jimmy Rogers
that's
works
great.
for that. All right, then they go to the Armada room. Murph and the Magic Tones are playing Quando, Quando, Quando.
I'm Murph, and these are the Magic Tones. Steve the Colonel Cropper, Donald Duck Dunn, Willie Two Big Hall, and Tom Bones Malone. We'll be back with the Magic Tones for the Armada Room's 2-hour disco swing party after this short break. Till then, don't you go changing.
I don't know that I've ever heard that song outside of this movie, so I had to look that up. And I'm sure you know it's an Italian pop song from the 60s. And so I wanted something cheesy, something loungy. So this was my first one. I really deviated far away from the blues theme. So I went with the Capital City Orchestra's version of Cha-Cha All the Way, which is like a version of Jingle Bells with a cha-cha-cha mixed into it. But there's a bunch of versions, but the Capital City Orchestra's a very horn-heavy version, and it just feels like something you'd hear at a lounge where there's only like 3 people watching the band.
It's funny. My pick is so different and yet so much the same. I picked Jingle Bell Hustle, originally Wayne Newton.
Yep.
And that's what I can absolutely see them rocking out, so to speak, to this. And that's at the Ramada in this little place. All right. They're going to get Matt Guitar Murphy and Blue Lou. And just outside of Matt's restaurant, the Soul Food Cafe, is John Lee Hooker playing Boom Boom.
Yeah.
The Blues Brothers? They still owe you money, fool.
So this one, I'm just going to state up front, nothing I pick will be better than John Lee Hooker there. He's just, both the songs in the movie and especially him playing Boom Boom in that scene is just, it's fantastic. It fits so well. So I'm giving it my best shot here. I went with actually one of your picks when you came on and did your Barry mixtape. I went with Wilson Pickett's Silver Bells. For Silver Bells, it's a very upbeat version of it. I think it times out okay to that scene. Still not going to say it's close to John Lee Hooker doing anything there, but I think you could make that work if you're Christmasifying the movie.
I stuck with John Lee Hooker and used Blues for Christmas. And it's not Boom Boom at all.
No.
But it's John Lee Hooker. So I thought, this is... my next couple of them are similar with keeping the same artist. And I just feel like, let's keep John Lee Hooker in there. So here's Blues for Christmas. All right. Matt Guitar Murphy and his wife, Aretha Franklin, discussing the Blues Brothers. They still owe you money, fool. And he's telling her that he's thinking about going, and Aretha sings Think.
Now, this is my man, this is my restaurant, and you two are gonna just walk right out that door without your dry white toast, without your 4 fried chickens, and without Mad Guitar Murphy.
Now, you listen to me. I love you, but I'm the man and you're the woman, and I'll make the decisions concerning my life.
You better think about what you're saying. You better think about the consequences of your actions.
What did you swap in for that?
So this is one. So I was along the same line of thinking. You know, you've got some amazing musicians all throughout this movie, and you know, obviously they're still the actors if we're not switching things up outside of the music. So I went with Aretha Franklin's "Christmas Ain't Christmas Without the One You Love."
Nice.
I figured that because she's telling them to think about leaving her and their life to go back out with the Blues Brothers. So I feel like if we're turning at Christmas, that song works in that scene where she's telling him, it's not Christmas without the ones you love. It's a different spin on the song, right? It's telling him Christmas isn't Christmas without the ones you love. Like don't leave me. It's not don't leave. It's not going to be Christmas. But yeah,
I picked 2 different Aretha songs. First, Christmas Here With You, which she did with the Four Tops, which sort of fits. Not really. It's not telling him you better think about the consequences of your actions. It's about spending Christmas here with you, and I'm just sort of making that be with you instead of having you go off with these fools. The other one is Aretha's amazing version of Joy to the World, because it doesn't fit, but it is so powerful.
So that was on my short list for this one, but I had already committed to Joy to the World for the church scene, and so I didn't want to cycle it twice. But that was actually my first pick for this one also.
Yeah, I know it doesn't fit, but I feel like it's sort of I feel like it doesn't fit, and it kind of does, especially the second half of our version where it is just explosive gospel.
Yeah.
James Brown should have done this, and I could have picked that for the earlier. All right, then they go to Ray's Music Exchange.
Pardon me, but we do have a strict policy concerning the handling of the instruments. An employee of Ray's Music Exchange must be present. Now, may I help you?
Murph tells him that there's no action left in that piano, and Ray Charles plays Shake a Tail Feather.
Yeah.
A very difficult song to swap in. What did you pick?
This is one where I fell down on the job again. I really wanted a Ray Charles song here, and I got to listen to the entire Spirit of Christmas album from start to finish. Just looking for something that kind of kept that beat. And so I went the other direction. I decided not to try to pick a Ray song, and went with Smokey Greenwald's version of Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
Oh, nice.
Specifically because that version has Johnny Neal, who is a pianist. He spent, I think, most of the 90s writing with and performing with the Allman Brothers. But in that version of Santa Claus is Coming to Town, he just plays the hell out of a chord keyboard. And so I thought that that fits with showing him there's some action left in the piano.
Yeah. I stuck with Ray Charles, and I used his version of Rudolph, which is one of the more upbeat songs on his Christmas album. Doesn't really fit. It's not Shake a Tail Feather. No. But I could still see them dancing as, I don't know if all the kids out on the street would be dancing to Rudolph, but it works.
That's good.
The band is back together. They're driving to their first gig at Bob's Country Bunker, and John Lee Hooker, again, Boogie Chillin', is playing.
All right, man, we've been in this car for 3 hours now. Where the hell is this place?
I told you it'd take a little while to get there.
What's the name of the place?
The name of the place is, Bob's Country Bunker. Here we are.
Would you swap for that?
Yeah, so I figured I already replaced John Lee Hooker with Wilson Pickett once, so you know what? I was just going to do it again. So I went back to the Christmas Soul Special album, and I pulled his version of Jingle Bells, which fits scene-wise. If you're going out to Bob's Country Bunker at Christmas time and you're in Illinois, there's probably some snow on the ground, so you could probably time it out to the dashing through the snow part, and it should work all right.
I was thinking about that when I had this whole idea. I thought, okay, the overall plot about saving the orphanage, that could be kind of a Christmassy sort of
Yeah.
thing. Swapping all these songs, that could be kind of Christmassy. And I thought, oh, Chicago in December, that could be brutal.
Yeah.
Let's not think about that.
Yeah, it's gonna make the car chase scenes a little different, at least.
Oh, yeah.
It's,
Yeah, they'll crash a lot more police cars.
yeah. So, quick side note: I had to look it up because I was watching this movie over the weekend, and I've seen this movie 1,000 times, but this is the first time it ever dawned on me. I'm like, man, they wreck a lot of cars in here.
Yeah.
So, pulled up my phone and looked it up, and yeah, they're Blues Brothers and actually the 2000 version are both, I think, in the top 10 of films that destroyed the most cars. This version was, I think, 104, and then they specifically wanted to do one more in the 2000s, so it
Right.
was 105. But yeah, I don't know why that never dawned on me up until this last time watching it. That's a lot of cars that get destroyed.
It is. And if there was snow and ice on the roads,
Oh yeah,
it would have been hundreds of cars. I swapped in for this Christmas Comes But Once a Year, Amos Milburn. I thought that's a good traveling tune. They're heading out to Bob's where they've never been. This is on in the background. I think it works.
What kind of music do you usually have here?
Oh, we got both kinds. We got country and western.
They get to Bob's Country Bunker, and Kitty Wells' Your Cheatin' Heart is playing. What do you put in for that?
Yeah, so I first went down the path of trying to find some kind of cheating at Christmas song, and I didn't come up with anything. So I went with the Statler Brothers, An Old-Fashioned Christmas. So again, moved away from the blues into, kind of more classic country. But I figured that's a bit tongue-in-cheek there too, because if they walk into this, country bar as the Blues Brothers and, you hear Old-Fashioned Christmas, I think that just sets the stage for what they're going to run into there.
Yeah, and Kitty Wells certainly not known as a blues artist.
No.
So that works. I used Loretta Lynn and her version of Blue Christmas. Same kind of reasons. I think it's that slow, sort of sad song, crying in your beer. They get on stage.
Oh, this list doesn't mean anything. They're just requests for a regular set. First tune. Give me some lovin'.
And they start playing their first song, "Give Me Some Lovin'." Blues Brothers. What do you swap for that?
Yeah, so I went with Chuck Berry's Jingle Bell Rock here, with the caveat that it would obviously be the Blues Brothers playing it and putting their little bit of spin on it, but I think that would be the same kind of shock that generated the "That Ain't No Hank Williams" song reaction to when they started playing "Give Me Some Lovin'."
I picked Solomon Burke, "Presents for Christmas." Not quite as upbeat as "Give Me Some Lovin'," but I think it's a strong opening song.
Yeah.
And that they could do it, and it would still get the same reaction where he turns off the lights and they're throwing beer bottles and booing them. So they got to think of something fast that Bob and the crowd will like.
Hey, I've got it. Remember the theme from Rawhide?
The old favorite, Rowdy Yates.
What key? Hey, good country key.
And the Blues Brothers play Rawhide. What did you swap for that?
Another great scene. So I put in Tex Ritter's Old Tex Kringle. I was looking for something kind of campy, I guess. Kind of in the same like Rawhide theme of what's the only Western thing we know? Well, it's the theme to Rawhide. So don't know that they'd actually know Old Tex Kringle off the top of their heads, but I think it would work.
I picked Jingle Bell Rock, Bobby Helms style, or Elvis's Here Comes Santa Claus, that style. Not particularly country, but well known enough that it might have gotten the lights back on. Then they play the song that's a favorite of the horn section, "Stand By Your Man."
I would like to do a favor of the horn section. Which one of yours?
So this one, again, I'm stretching the rules a little bit. So I went with George Jones' "Lonely Christmas Call." I think that would be a big hit at Bob's. But of course, like "Stand By Your Man," it would have to be performed by the Blues Brothers, and so you're going to get that big horn section in it, which is a little deviation from the George Jones original.
I picked "Old Toy Trains," Roger Miller version, or "Pretty Paper," Roy Orbison or Glenn Campbell. I think either of those are slow and sad, and that's a perfect Bob's Country Bunker kind of song. The next music scene, the Blues Brothers are driving around trying to get the word out about their concert.
Naomi, the fabulous Blues Brothers. Rhythm and Blues Review. The Palace Hotel Ballroom. Room 16, Lake Plaza Pomani. The fabulous Blues Brothers. Show band and review.
And Fats Domino's I'm Walking is playing in the background. Would you swap for that?
Yeah, so I had two here. The first one was an accident. So I mentioned that I'd made a list of just blues Christmas songs I really liked. So one of the ones I had on there was Fats Domino's I Told Santa Claus. And it fits pretty well, tempo-wise in the scene. So I think that one would work. The lyrics don't quite like I'm Walking works because that's what they're doing. They're just hoofing it all over, getting the word out about their concert. So it would be more of a stretch, to make, I Told Santa Claus fit in there. The other one that I liked in this spot, and I think this is probably the second most modern artist I have on here, is Cy Cranston's A Christmas Twist. So he's someone I think I just heard for the first time last year. For folks that don't know, he's an English artist who I think spent the first 20 years of his career just like busking around London, and then he got picked up in the late 2000s, 2008-9, and he's recorded like at least a half a dozen albums since then of kind of like a 50s rock, R&B, some little rockabilly, but he does this song A Christmas Twist that really has that like 50s Chubby Checker kind of sound to it, and I think that fits the scene really well.
Yeah, that's I like that a lot. I had picked Carla Thomas, Gee Whiz, It's Christmas, which is a little slow, but I think it would work. And I also thought of Lee Rogers, You Don't Have to Wait Till Christmas. Again, not as peppy as I'm Walking, but I think either of those would work.
Yeah, I think both of those are solid.
All right, the band is at the Palace Hotel Ballroom waiting for Jake and Elwood to show up, and Cab Calloway asks them if they know Minnie the Moocher.
Hey, you guys know Minnie the Moocher?
I knew a hooker once named Minnie Mazzola.
No, the song Minnie the Moocher.
Yeah, so what?
Hit it!
What'd you swap for Minnie the Moocher?
Yeah, so this is another one where I was bound and determined to use a Cab Calloway song because it's just he's such a big character in the movie, Curtis, and such a big part of it. So I stayed with Cab Calloway, but I stretched the limit of what we consider a Christmas song again, and I went with Everybody Eats When They Come to My House. Which again isn't a Christmas song, but I will say it has also been used in a Christmas commercial. So it's been several years ago now, but Waitrose, it's a big British supermarket chain, used that for their holiday campaign, and I think it fits the scene all right, because everyone's kind of like, well, where are the Blues Brothers? We paid, we showed up here, and I think playing everyone eats when they come to my house. Don't worry, you're all going to be taken care of. Just settle down, and we're getting into it. I think works okay.
I went through so many different Cab Calloway songs trying to find something, and I couldn't find anything that I liked well enough to do this. So I used Rufus Thomas, I'll Be Your Santa Baby, or the Ames Brothers, There Will Always Be Christmas. Neither of them really have that call and response like Minnie the Moocher does, but I feel like those would have been crowd pleasers to...
and they both have those big vocals. So that's what my challenge was with finding another Cab Calloway song is any of the, so like Harlem Holiday is his big one. But it's a much, slower, the vocals are much more subdued in it. And so, it just wouldn't have the same impact in that scene. So I think both those are great picks. They would serve that well.
Yeah, it's tough to find something like that because I immediately think, well, you want a big big crooning kind of voice, but Frank and Dean and Sammy don't quite fit. And, you know, and any of the classic crooners, it just doesn't feel right. So, and I mean, I don't know why it doesn't feel right, because we're making all of this up.
Yeah.
But
No, I totally get that.
Jake and Elwood arrive, and they play Everybody Needs Somebody to Love.
Yeah.
We're so glad to see so many of you lovely people here tonight. We would especially like to welcome all the representatives of Illinois' law enforcement community who have chosen to join us here in the Palace Hotel Ballroom at this time. We certainly hope you all enjoy the show. And remember, people, that no matter who you are and what you do to live, thrive, and survive, there's still some things that make us all the same. You, me, them, everybody. Everybody.
What do you swap for that?
So this one is one of the other ones that took me a while to, because it's a big scene, right? This is a big important scene of the movie, and so I went with probably a lesser known artist, Little Isidore and the Inquisitors' "Christmas of Love." So
I love that.
Yeah, it's a fantastic song. For folks who aren't familiar, he was a musician he was, I think, a child actor on a game show in the 60s, like a recurring character. But then in the 70s, had his own album. His real name is David Foreman, and I think the album was just called David Foreman. And it was a big, critically acclaimed album at the time, but I don't think sold well. And so that was his only album. But a bunch of people, Eddie Kendricks, The Temptations, all covered songs of his off that album. And so he didn't turn up again until the mid-90s, and he took the name Little Isidore, put together a band called the Inquisitors, and then started coming out with a string of albums. So Ron Howard tapped him in 2000 to do this song, Christmas of Love, and it was the song used in the live-action Grinch movie. But I think a Blues Brother, again, this is the Blues Brothers singing, so a Blues Brothers treatment of that song would work well as their first song of the night.
Yeah, this is a great song. I love that song, and I can absolutely see.
Can you see it?
Yeah, absolutely see him doing this. I picked Santa Claus is Back in Town, kind of Elvis style. Yeah. I can totally see Dan Aykroyd setting it up, Elwood sets it up, and Jake, well, it's Christmas time, pretty baby.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's something, like I said, that was kind of what I was looking for, was something big and theatric, right? It's crowd just got pumped up by Cab Calloway, and now you need something big to make that work.
It's funny because they only really do, well, if you count Cab Calloway's song, they only do 3 songs, and then the Blues Brothers take off. The next song they play, Sweet Home Chicago. It's a long version because they get that long instrumental where they sneak out.
They sneak out, yep.
You know, we're going to make a break for you and the band keep playing.
What did you swap in for that?
So I had to stick with the Chicago theme. And so I went with the song Christmas in Chicago, but instead of Leon Russell's version, actually looking up to see who did it, I stumbled into the artist Katie Caden, who up until a couple of days ago, I didn't know who that was, but she's probably
great. Yeah. That's terrific.
Yeah. So, she blew me away. So, I think she's only been performing or recording for, it's probably been 10 years now. I was going to say a handful, but I know every time I try to date something, I'm off by like 10 years. So, but yeah, just a huge, soulful voice, and does a great version of that song.
Yeah. Yeah, I went with Leon Russell's Christmas in Chicago for that. I also put in Rufus and Carla Thomas, That Makes Christmas Day. I love the song. Plus, it's almost a 6-minute Christmas song, which you don't get a lot. I've used Rufus and Carla many times already, so I don't know if that would work, but why not? Because there are no rules.
Yep, I like it.
All right, they finally get to the right building.
Where's the office of the assessor of Cook County? Down the hall, turn right, take the elevator 1102. Thank you, sir.
And get into the elevator, there's a Muzak version of The Girl from Ipanema playing. Would you swap for that?
Yeah, so since this was a Muzak one, I had to put the least amount of effort possible into this one. So I think I Googled Stan Getz Christmas music and found his version of Frosty, which is good. And it's a little instrumental piece, and said that would take the Muzak treatment fine. It would work fine in that scene where they're just waiting in the elevator.
Everything that I thought up is too good to be Muzak.
I wasn't gonna use any of my my on the deck picks for this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I had thought of, Leroy Anderson's Sleigh Ride would work, a Muzak version of it, but then you wouldn't recognize it. I thought just about anything the Ventures did would have worked, but it would be unrecognizable as the Ventures because it would be Muzak. Manfred Mann did an instrumental God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen, which I think you wouldn't even need to Muzak. You could just plop that
Just
right
play
in
it
there.
as is. Nice.
Yeah.
That's where they pay the taxes, right?
Right. This money is for the year's assessment on the St. Helena of the Blessed Shroud Orphanage in Calumet City, Illinois.
$5,000. It's all there, pal.
And the last song, they're in jail and they play Jailhouse Rock.
Yeah. So I feel like this one was kind of a punt, even though it's like the big final scene of the movie. So I just went with Elvis Presley's Santa Claus is Back in Town. I felt like you had to have the Elvis vibe there, and it kind of works because he's back in prison again. Jake's back in prison again. So yeah, they're back in town. They did their thing. So that's what I went. Because you mentioned at the top the Universal Studios Blues Brothers stage show that goes, where they do the Christmas song. So they do a Christmas version of Santa Claus Rock from that show, and so I think that that might work there also. But my first pick was Elvis's Santa Claus is Back in Town.
Well, the first thing that popped into my head was, I think, was your first song, Leroy Carr, Christmas in Prison Ain't That a Pain.
Yeah.
But then I thought something, that's going to make Joe Walsh and all the other prisoners jump on the tables. And I thought about the youngsters' Christmas in jail.
Oh.
And I just thought, you know what, that would move them. It's not Jailhouse Rock. Everybody wouldn't know that, but this isn't real. And also the movie's not real. So we could pretend that they all knew it. So I think that would work.
Yeah,
so
that'd be perfect.
I would totally go see this movie.
I would too. Someone should get on that.
Yeah. It would be a lot of fun. Well, thanks for coming along on this weird ride with me. And before we wrap it all up, anything? Can you share anything about upcoming episodes of Tis the Soundtrack?
Yeah. So we've been on hiatus for about the last 6 weeks. We had some family events going on, and then for whatever reason, this cold and flu season has been terrible. So we've just had them back to back and back running through the house. So I think the next episode coming out in the next handful of days will be the Next Merry Mixtapes episode, where Tim Babb comes on and does his Disneyland at Christmas time mixtape. And then after that, we have a couple more Disneyland Holiday Loop episodes. We're going to take a look at Frontierland out here at Disneyland. And what do I have after that one? It's the Disney Springs out in Florida, the shopping district, the Holiday Loop that's special for that area. And then after that, the episode I'm putting together right now is around Christmas music of the bands of the Warped Tour. So for folks who... for folks who don't know, the Warped Tour is back this year. It's their 30th anniversary. And, through the 90s and 2000s, it traveled around to like 50 different cities across the country and Canada. For their 30th anniversary, it's 3 cities. It's Orlando, Florida, Long Beach, California, and Washington, D.C. It's a 2-day event, and then each location has like 100 artists over those 2 days that are playing. And so it's a mix of 90s, 80s, 90s punk bands and ska from that, era, and then, all the emo bands of the early 2000s, and then something that my 13-year-old son had to explain to me, which is all the emo rap artists who are out now, which I didn't know was a thing, and I've been educated by him now. But, across those 3 locations, there are, I think, probably close to 200 unique artists that are playing there. And several of them have some fantastic Christmas songs and covers they've done. And so that's the episode I'm putting together right now. It probably won't be out for another month or so, but it's putting together basically an album of Christmas tunes from those bands.
Wow, that's huge. Just think about how many bands you're talking about. And I know that most people who would listen to a podcast like this like Christmas music, but you have no idea how much is out there and how many bands will do a single and you had no idea they did any Christmas music. And I'm just thinking, wow, hundreds of bands. If only a quarter of them, that's a lot.
Yeah, and it actually surprised me when I was pulling it together how many have full albums out they've done. But it's a non-zero number. But then there's like you were saying, a lot more that just did a one-off track for a compilation or for fun, for something to put up on YouTube a few years ago. And so it's a surprisingly deep well to draw from.
Wow. Yeah. What's the best way for people to find you?
Yeah, so the website is tisthesoundtrack.com, and that's the handle on all the normal social media platforms. I've been spending the most time over at Blue Sky right now, but it's the same on all of them. And then anywhere you get your podcasts, Tis the Soundtrack, and you'll find it on there.
Okay. I'll make sure I put a link down in the show notes.
Awesome.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks so much for indulging me and coming up with all these songs.
No, this was a blast. I knew this was going to be fun. I didn't know how much fun I was going to have putting this together, but this has been this is a great way to spend my evening for the last several days.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. If you have suggestions on something you think would be better or at least should be considered that we missed, please reach out and let me know. And I'll let Kevin know. And if there's enough of them, we'll do a part 2 to this and we'll add your input. If there's a song that we mentioned that you're not familiar with, we mentioned a lot of songs, so I'm not going to put links to everything. But if there's something you're curious about, let me know that too, and I will point you in the right direction. Kevin, thanks again. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, had a great time. Thanks, Ken.
And thank you so much for listening and helping us share some Christmas spirit, and for continuing to support the Sounds of Christmas station on podcast. I already told you how to listen to the station, and you're listening to the podcast now, so my work here is just about done. All of our episodes are available on the Sounds of Christmas website. Just click the podcast tab. And we also have a Linktree page that lists most, if not all, of the sites that stream the Sounds of Christmas podcast. So you can click that. I'll put a link to that down in the show notes. And you can click that and head on over to your favorite site and then subscribe, and you'll never miss another episode. If you have comments or suggestions on this episode, previous episodes, or the Sounds of Christmas station, feel free to reach out to me on social media or through the website. And if you're listening to this on your phone, you can also click the Send Us a Text Message link and connect that way. Thanks again. And may you always believe in Santa Claus.